Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can everybody hear me? Good morning. Welcome to Reading's Memorial Day celebration, honoring our fallen comrades. You can't hear me? All right. Can you hear me now? All right. Thank you. I'm not used to using PA systems, so bear with me. I would like to thank you all for coming today. I'd like to thank the individual Lord God above for wonderful weather that He's given us so we can honor our fallen. So thank you, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Navy veteran Father Z from St. King's Parish. Father, the invocation.
Please uncover. In the quiet sanctuaries of our hearts, let each of us name and call on the one whose power over us is great and gentle, firm and forgiving, holy and healing. You who created us, who sustain us, who call us to live in peace, hear our prayer this day. Hear our prayer for all who have died, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. Hear our prayer for those who put the welfare of others ahead of their own, and give us hearts as generous as theirs. Hear our prayer for those who gave their lives in the service of others, especially to we as a nation, and accept the gift of their sacrifice. Help us to shape and make a world where we will lay down the arms of war and turn our swords into plowshares for a harvest of justice and peace. Comfort those who grieve the loss of their loved ones. And let your healing be a hope in our hearts. Hear our prayer this day, and in your mercy answer us, in the name of all that is holy. The peace of God be with you.
Please remain standing while the Reading Honor Guard presents the colors and the Reading High School Marching Band plays our national anthem. Thank you. Next up the podium will be Representative Haggerty to read Governor's proclamation. Representative.
Good morning. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. Whereas, while the nation was still recovering from the horrors of the Civil War, people in cities and towns across this country gathered to honor those Union and Confederate soldiers who had given their lives celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas, after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country. Renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who have fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas, throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts citizens have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and our way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism, dedication to country, is an inspiration to all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who gave their lives, so that their sacrifice and service will be a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now therefore I, Maura T. Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 29, 2023 to be Memorial Day, and urge all citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston, the first day of May in the year 2023, and of the independence of the United States of America, and 246th, by Her Excellency, Maura Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth, Kimberly Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, Secretary of the Commonwealth, William Francis Galvin. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Our next speaker will be our custodians of sailors and graves, Raymond Boyd. Read General Logan's general order. Right?
General Orders Number 11. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes? Their soldier lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of their slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism or avarice or neglect nor ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then at the time appointed gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude. The soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of this Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will keep up from year to year. While a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades, he earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. Thank you.
The Reading High School Band will now play America the Beautiful. Thank you. Please welcome to the podium our town manager, Vidal Maltz.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. On behalf of the town of Reading, it is my pleasure to welcome each one of you to our Memorial Day
celebration. I would like to thank the members of our state delegation and the members of the Reading Select Board, and most importantly, to the amazing team that made this Memorial Day celebration possible. Today, we gather to celebrate the courageous men and women of our armed forces who gave their lives to our nation. On this special day, we express our heartfelt gratitude to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. They demonstrated bravery, guided by a strong sense of duty and love for their neighbors. Today, we remember their sacrifices, their courage, and their spirit in the face of adversity. Memorial Day is not just a moment to reflect on the past. It is also an opportunity to support and uplift the men and women serving in the armed forces today, and most importantly, our veterans. We stand with our veterans, providing them with the care, the resources, and the appreciation that they deserve. It is our obligation to ensure that their continuing sacrifices are also never forgotten. Memorial Day also serves as a reminder of everything we want our community in Reading to be. As we reflect, let us focus on selflessness, on service to others. Let us strive for justice, for equality, and unity within our community. And to build a Reading that honors the principles of our fallen heroes that they fought to defend. Today, as we gather and remember and pay tribute, let us recommit ourselves to the ideals of service, of compassion, of resilience. Let us honor the memory of our fallen heroes by actively engaging in our community, by supporting one another, and working to build a better future that embodies the spirit and values that they held dear. May we always remember the sacrifices made on our behalf, and may their legacy inspire us to strive for a better and a more compassionate Reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Jack Nelson, going to read in Flanders Field. Jack?
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely sings fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Jack. Be followed by Representative Bradley Jones.
Good morning. It's truly a privilege for me to join with all of you today as we honor our fallen heroes. Today's ceremony is a reminder of the words inscribed in the Korean War Memorial in Washington. Freedom is not free. Rather, is an expensive commodity that has been paid for 1,000 times over by the men and women we honor today. Since our nation's beginning, nearly 1.4 million Americans have made the ultimate sacrifice to create, preserve, and defend our freedom and democracy. Our own state of Massachusetts has seen more than 37,000 of its own residents remembered with the planting of flags on Boston Common this past week. Memorial Day is a day we can come together as a community to pay tribute to those Americans who have died in service to the United States. And while everyone who served gave something, today we gather to remember those who gave everything, to remember those who gave their last full measure of devotion to a cause greater than themselves in service to their country. The members of our military know when they go off to war, there is a possibility they may never see their loved ones again, but they do so with the knowledge they are serving a greater cause. The men and women we honor today left behind mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, and sons and daughters. They paid with their lives not only so we can be free, but also so our children, our grandchildren, and future generations continue to enjoy those same freedoms. America is not a perfect country, but it is a great country, because it is always striving to live up to its founding ideals, always bending its arc towards justice. America is a rich quilt whose diverse people, cultures, and stories are stitched together by the threads of freedom earned by the sacrifices of the Americans we remember and honor today. These stitches have been strained and reinforced at various times in our nation's history. They were strained to the breaking point by the Civil War that set brother against brother, and they were strengthened by the enormous universal sense of purpose experienced during World War II. Oliver Wendell Holmes called Memorial Day our most sacred holiday. He believed that we should not ponder with sad thoughts the passing of heroes, but rather ponder their legacy, the life they made possible for us by their commitment and pain. It's easy to be complacent at times living in a nation where we enjoy so many freedoms and personal liberties. But we must never forget the many brave men and women who throughout our nation's history have answered the call to serve, and in doing so have helped to ensure that we remain the land of the free. We are truly fortunate to live in a country where we can practice whatever religion we choose freely and without fear of prosecution. We can openly criticize the government and not be thrown into jail, and we can vote out our leaders in and out of office through free and open elections, and we owe it to our veterans. So many countries have never known true freedom, but America continues to serve as a beacon of hope for people around the world, thanks to the many sacrifices of our fallen heroes. It is incumbent upon us to always remember, not just today, but every day, that many sacrifices made to preserve freedom and democracy throughout this great nation. Our great American quilt faces challenges that strain those threads holding it together. In the words of Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, "It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure devotion, that we were highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain." I urge all of us gathered here today, gathered across our Commonwealth and across our country, to endeavor with a renewed sense of commitment to work together, even in resolving our differences, that we can strengthen and preserve those threads that bind our great American quilt together. And in doing so, we will have ensured they did not die in vain, but instead have been remembered and honored for their sacrifices, that we have earned what they paid for. Please join with me in continuing to honor our fallen heroes, as well as those men and women who currently serve at home and abroad, in your thoughts and prayers each and every day. Thank you. God bless our veterans, our fallen heroes, and God bless America.
Our next speaker will be Select Board Member Chris Haley. Chris?
Good morning and thank you, Representative Jones. Thank you to the other members of our delegation, town staff, the incredible volunteers that made this day possible, and everyone here in attendance. I'm honored to be speaking with you today on such an important occasion. We're here today to honor our service members and remember the sacrifices that they have made in honor of duty, in honor of our country. Let us all take a moment to reflect on the lives of the men and women of this country who are willing to pay the ultimate price to ensure our freedoms. General George S. Patton said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God such men lived." If you really think about that quote, it's true on so many levels. Many of us would not be here today without the sacrifices of those before us and those that continue to do so to this very day. It's easy to take for granted the freedoms and liberties we have today because to some, it's always been like this. May we never forget that freedom isn't free. To truly honor their lives, we must share their stories with others and ensure their memories live on even though they are gone. Today I remember my grandfather, Francis Haley. He was in the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, and he was also in World War II in Korea. He did not die in service to our country, but the scars of war are not always visible, and to this day, it's now more apparent than ever. Last year, I had the honor and privilege of speaking at Charles Lawn Cemetery, where I told the story of Sergeant Parker Chelsea Kimball, one of the men that is buried there. The account I told was researched and written by 2020 RMHS graduate Autumn Hendrickson. Part of being a good leader in town is knowing your strengths and knowing when others may be able to do justice to such an important legacy of a soldier that's buried at Laurel Hill today. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce Autumn Hendrickson to do such that. Autumn.
Hi everyone. I would like to take the time that I have been allotted to speak today to briefly tell you the story of a young man from Reading who was killed in the Second World War and whose remains lie in this very cemetery. Richard Charles Austin was born in this town to Irving and Thelma Austin on October 13th, 1922. He was their first child, and he spent his boyhood on Prescott Street in Reading. Graduating from Reading High School with the class of 1939, Richard then went to Vermont Academy for a postgraduate year before finally deciding to pursue a college education at Norwich University, a private military college in Northfield, Vermont. After the outbreak of the Second World War and America's entry into it, the federal government ordered that all Norwich cadets be inducted into the United States Army. And in March 1943, Richard answered his country's call unquestioningly. After serving with the 10th Mountain Division, the Ski Troopers, in Colorado, Richard then volunteered to be transferred to the Airborne. Richard would jump into Normandy on D-Day as one of those brave paratroopers before being pulled back to England for some much-needed rest. The next time the 101st Airborne Division was called into action was in September 1944 for Operation Market Garden, a coordinated paradrop into Holland. Alongside the British Airborne and the 82nd Airborne Division, Richard jumped from an aircraft into Holland with his unit on September 17, 1944. After being welcomed joyously by the Dutch people there, Richard's unit moved quickly into battle. And on September 22nd, 1944, in the vicinity of Schindel, Richard's life would be cut short by a mortar round that would strike him in the shoulder. At the time of his death, Richard had on him $3.77, which would be mailed to his mother and father in the form of a check on June 9th, 1945, courtesy of the United States government. He also had on him one unmailed letter to a friend in Arlington, Massachusetts, and an addressed envelope to his father. He had also kept some of his parachute's silk, perhaps because he hoped, like so many other paratroopers, to be able to send it home to his girlfriend of 2 years, Jean McIntosh, back in Colorado, where he had trained with the 10th Mountain Division, for a wedding dress. When his death was reported in the Reading Chronicle on October 13th, 1944, which would have been Richard's birthday, the article remarked, quote, "Hope is still held by the family that the report is in error." Of course, it was not. The people of Reading joined the Austin family in the mourning of their deceased son, though, and did so in such a way that it was remarked in the same newspaper on January 12th, 1945, that the Unitarian Community Church was filled to capacity last Sunday afternoon for the memorial service for Richard Austin. During that time, Richard's grave, which was then located all the way over in Holland, in an American military cemetery now known as Margraten, was being cared for by a Belgian man named Ben Grieve, who wrote to the Austin family to inform them that he would watch over Richard's remains. On January 6, 1949, at the request of his parents, the remains of Richard Charles Austin arrived in Reading on the 5 p.m. train, guarded by a young soldier. Shortly thereafter, he would be permanently laid to rest in Laurel Hill Cemetery. If you walk over the hill and to the left and go all the way to the Highland Street entrance to this cemetery, off in that little corner, you will find the headstone of the Austin family. To the front of the stone, you will find a placard in the ground with the words, Richard C. Austin, Massachusetts, Private, 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division, October 13th, 1922 to September 22nd, 1944. 6 feet beneath that placard lies the remains of one of Reading's great heroes and one little boy who grew up at 180 Prescott Street.
Thank you, Autumn. Next up at the podium will be Jill Mayberry to read the honor roll.
Good morning, everybody. These are the veterans that have passed away this past year who lived in Reading. Joseph Zamboni, John Keeman, Guy Beninati, William Keefe Jr., Michael Grunsweg, Joseph DiGiovanni, Hamar Al, Donald Smith, William Coveni Jr., Michael Modica, Robert Macaluso, Alan Schofield, Ernest Gillis, Edward Stanley Jr., John Reagan, John Bruno, Bernard Hagan Jr., William Grace, William Denhard, William Webster, Robert Barrett, Thomas Hunt, Robert Crosby, Salvador Piaciuto, John O'Malley, Thomas Flanagan, Robert Larson, Thomas McKenna, John Shanahan, Arthur Paradis, Robert Daphne. May they rest in peace. And thank you, Scouts, for the placement of the flowers on the veterans' graves and also those volunteers. Thank you.
Next at the podium will be our one and only William Bill Brown, U.S. Air Force veteran, guest speaker. Mr. Brown.
Good morning. I'm not as limber as some of the yellow fellows, but I'm here. How many veterans we got out there today? Thank you for your service, and I salute you. On May 30th, 1866, can you hear me all right now? Thank you. A group of Southern ladies came together to place flowers on Union and Confederate graves in Arlington National Cemetery. Thanks. Today we will continue that tradition by honoring just over 2,400 men and women who, having answered the last roll call, now rest in Reading cemeteries. Behind me is one of the many tributes in this town honoring our veterans. It honors the men that served and died in the Civil War, a war that pitted father against son and son against brother against brother. Gift in part from a gentleman named Abel Holman and dedicated in 1865 the first such memorial in the state. By a vote at town meeting, Reading High School on Oakland Road was dedicated June 9th, 1957 as Reading Memorial High School. In the present building, you will see a plaque with the names of those that made the supreme sacrifice in World War II in Korea for the young men that were killed in Vietnam and the Persian Gulf, and hopefully he will be the last. Mother Nature's giving me a little tough time this morning. On June 9th, 2007, 50 years after the original dedication, it was rededicated in honor of all the men and women that have or are serving this country in all wars. On the glass wall, you will see the medallions of the Army, the Navy, Marines, Air Force, and Coast Guard. In the background, you'll see an American flag that was flown over all 8 schools in the town of Reading. Excuse me. On the right, when you went to the building, you will see a monument dedicated November 11th of last year to all the men and women that served during the Vietnam War, with names of the 7 men that died in that war inscribed. At the entrance to the rise at the back of the school building, there are 3 benches, a stone dedicated to all that had died so that we may enjoy our freedom. A project done by Daniel Izzo to earn her Gold Scout Award. Walter Hawks Fieldhouse is named after Walter Hawks, a PT instructor, my instructor at Parker Junior High School before joining the Army. Philip Welch was a World War I veteran. He served as the DPW director and developed the plan for the Bridge Meadow plant as we see it today. There is a stone with a plaque dedicated to Frank Driscoll, a Purple Hat Marine, where he used to stand and watch and coach the girls' softball team. Arthur W. Coolidge was a World War I veteran, a state representative, a state senator, and lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth. Nelson Burbank, Burbank YMCA, flew in B-29s and was a World War II veteran. David Castine Field, was a teacher at Reading Memorial High School, a veteran, and a freshman on the first Reading Rockets team. No, and the name didn't come from the water tower. Across the tracks, we come to Tannerville, named after Frank Tanner, a World War I veteran, a state representative. At the base of the flagpole, you'll see a plaque dedicated to the Marines that served in World War II. Walter Parker, Parker Middle School, enlisted in the GIR, Grand Army Republic at 17, returned, went to school, and spent 35 years in education. And by the way, the band is standing on his grave up there, so I don't know if he'll mind or not. When you enter Washington Street Park, you'll see 2 stone plaques with plaques on them. One dedicated to Lawrence Doucette, the only man from Reading that was killed in Korea while serving as a medic with the Marines. Walter Doucette was shot down over what we now know as Hanoi, and again, there's a flag at the base of the flagpole. There's a plaque dedicated to the Marines. Joshua Eaton was the only man from Reading killed in the Revolutionary War. Keeping in mind, at that time, Reading, North Reading, and Wakefield are all Reading. Ernest Leach was the first man killed in World War I, and by a vote of town meeting, the name was changed to Mayall Park in his honor. Now we go down to Salem Street, the entrance to Memorial Park, where you'll find a stone with the names of 13 men that died in World War I. Back up the hill to the flagpole on the Common, where you find 2 plaques. Mother Nature's giving me a hard time. And you'll find the names of all the men that made the supreme sacrifice from World War I to the present day. At the entrance, at the entrance to Laurel Hill, you'll see a monument dedicated November 11th, 1939, dedicated to the men from Reading that served in World War I, men and women, and other conflicts as of time has gone has been added. So the war to end all wars did not succeed. On behalf of myself and my fellow veterans that proudly served and are serving to ensure your freedom, God bless the United States And God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The RMSH Band will now play the Battle Hymn of the Republic, to be followed by taps. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our ceremonies at Laurel Hill. I'd like to thank all the scouts for their dedication and those volunteers that came out to help us decorate the graves of our fallen heroes. Today is a day in which we will always remember and keep those that have fallen for our freedoms. For freedom comes with a cost. Thank you all. The next ceremony will be at Forest Glen at 10:45, services at Charles Lawn Cemetery at 11:30, and service at Wood End Cemetery at 12 noon. Thank you all for coming. Thank you on behalf of the board, select board, and those here gathered today to pay honor and tribute to those fallen. Thank you.